It's Monday, February 22nd, 2016. Have you read the Metro today? The first article that caught my eye was this one. Let boys put a dress on, says school head. Basically, the article reads Joe Haywood of Heathfield Boarding School, an all girls school, mind you, criticizes retailers for having gender based labeling of clothes and toys, basically because there's attitudes changing in the UK with parents. She says that boys should be encouraged to wear dresses. Keep in mind, she is the head of an all girls boarding school. Keep that in mind. So she says that parents should encourage their boys, so if they have boys, to wear dresses, and that if we should have girly makeup, but the boys should have it as well, is basically what she's saying. She herself has 3 daughters, which she claims she makes the claim that she doesn't allow her 3 daughters to wear gender neutral clothes. She doesn't even allow them to play with quote unquote pink princess Lego. And she says it drives her nuts the way manufacturers brand toys as suitable for either boys or girls. She also says that they should stop having blue and pink themed aisles in toy stores. Now, there was a survey on the channelmum.com parenting website where nearly a quarter of parents actually want gender neutral school uniforms for their children. They also don't believe that there shouldn't be any toys or any books that are gender labeled. So I guess geared to boys or geared to girls. This kind of blows my mind. Again, keep in mind, she is the head of an all girls boarding school. How is it that she, who runs an all girls boarding school, is trying to advocate for gender-based, against having gender-based labeling of anything? Hello, if you're the head of the boarding school, an all-girls boarding school, would you not be forcing to make this co-ed boarding school? This makes no sense. Keep in mind, look what she herself is wearing. That is not gender-neutral clothes. She is wearing women's clothes. Yet she says that her 3 daughters wear gender-neutral clothes. I mean, I just have to think: is she wearing women's underwear? Does her 3 girls wear girl underwear? Or is she saying that she's wearing men's boxers? Is that what she's saying? And then she makes her daughters wear men's boxers. I mean, men don't wear bras either. Is she going to be saying, oh no, you don't need to wear your bra? What? It should be gender neutral. Men don't wear bras, so you don't have to wear a bra. What kind of nonsense is this? Absolute nonsense. And here's the thing. Keep in mind, she says that we should be encouraging boys to wear dresses. We should be encouraging boys to use makeup. The same makeup that girls, so not like clown makeup, but the same type of makeup that girls and women use. Why would you encourage that? If you're talking about gender neutrality, then basically you're saying if they want to do it, fair enough. But that's not what you're saying here. You want to encourage them to do it. So, the boy has no desire to wear the dress. You're encouraging them to wear the dress. What kind of nonsense? Stupid. What kind of nonsense is that? As if, I mean, think about it. She doesn't even want her children her daughters to play with pink princess Lego. Princess is for girls. You do know that. Boys are called princes. Well, it used to be though. I know some guys call themselves princesses, but it used to be boys are princes, girls are princesses. She's talking as if gender is this thing that man has created. That's not how it works. Gender is biology, male and female. That's biology, science. That's how God actually made us. Why is it? Where did this come from? It's just so weird. I mean, it's one thing to say that someone is either gay or lesbian, or you have a woman that wants to be a man. Think about this. You have men who are gay, who are in relationships, right? You have and what do they call them? You have one that acts the quote unquote male role, as though as in they're the dominant one in the relationship, and the other one takes the more passive role, quote unquote, and they're the quote unquote woman in a relationship. You have lesbians who actually, what they call them, dykes, where they portray the quote unquote masculine role. They dress as men, they look as men, they portray themselves as men, they behave as men, they try to walk as men and talk like men and act like men. I mean, I've actually read statistics where in lesbian relationships there is more violence, actual physical violence that goes on in that relationship, in lesbian relationships. How does this so-called gender neutral actually, doesn't that destroy this whole transgender business? Because on one hand you have someone who was born a girl, a female, someone that was born a female wants to be male, but there should be no gender. Gender is neutral. There is no, what you mean you want to be a male? That doesn't exist. You're just neutral. It doesn't make a difference. There is no male or female. It's just neutral. There is no real gender. So what are you talking about? Makes absolutely no sense. And again, she is the head teacher of an all girls boarding school. How does that make sense? You would think that her role would be she doesn't allow her three daughters to dress she only allows her three daughters to dress in gender neutral clothes, quote unquote, which makes it makes no sense, because I'm sorry, girls don't have certain parts that boys have. There's the clothes, male clothes are tailored in a certain way. Even boys' clothes, specifically, all right, underwear. Boys' underwear are tailored in a certain way because they have equipment that girls don't have, right? There's growing up, girls have equipment that boys don't have. Well, normally that boys don't have. I know, with obesity and some boys, if they're out of shape, blah blah, But I'm talking about the chest area here. But generally speaking, a girl reaches a certain age, puberty, you start to get a bra, training bra. Yes, yes. You don't do that for men, right? You don't do that for boys. Boys hit puberty. You don't go, oh, you need a training bra. Nonsense. It is nonsense. Nonsense. All of this is absolute nonsense. Ungodly nonsense. For the Christian, this is just mind-boggling. It's one thing to say, I'm gay. I'm a male who likes men, sexually attracted to men. It's one thing to say, I'm a lesbian. I'm a woman who's sexually attracted to another woman. It's another thing to completely wipe those genders out and completely say, no, there is no such thing. No, the gender is neutral. Everything should just be gender neutral. Absolute nonsense. And she does not live this way. I guarantee, again, she is wearing women's clothes. There's even differences in earrings. There's male earrings and there's women earrings. There's even that type of difference. Absolute nonsense. I guarantee, mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. We need to pray for the UK. Seriously, we need to pray for the UK, because I know in America they're having this whole big issue about gender and gender is being fluid and gender is a social construct. Nonsense. Gender is built in our DNA, literally built in our DNA, literally, right? God has made it, created male and female, and has said it that way for almost all species. Even species that are asexual, there's still a gender. In almost all areas, there's still a gender, unless you're talking about amoeba, where there's no distinguishable gender or anything like that. But in almost all other species of animals, anything that lives, there's a gender. And it's not something that we've constructed. That's how it is. That is how it is. That is biology. God has made it that way. It's built literally in our DNA. To try and make it into some kind of social construct that no man, out of our man's own wisdom, we have decided to come up with the terms male and female. We are the ones who decided to come up with these distinguishing things that boys should wear these type of clothes, girls should wear these type of clothes. There's a reason for that. It is God ordained. God, keep in mind when Jesus, when you had Adam and Eve and they fell and God made clothes for them, God did not make the exact same clothes for Adam and the exact same clothes for Eve. There are certain things that are inherent to a woman's body that is different than a man's body. That is how God made it, right? The man is Ish, the woman is Isha. That is how God made it. This gender neutral, oh my goodness. I hope there's not a storm of this nonsense coming to the UK. I know it's like a whirlwind in America right now. You have the gay agenda, you have the transgender LGBTQ 5, 6, 7, 23 agenda going on in America, and then now you have the this whole gender neutral thing where schools are being made forced. There's attempts being made so that bathrooms should be made gender neutral. Everything, there should be no women's bathroom, no men's bathroom, even lockers. Think about this. Even gym lockers in school, high schools, and things like that. Even those have to become neutral now. So, you have that. There should be nothing wrong with women, girls showering with boys in the same. Absolute madness. Absolutely madness. We need to, guys. We need to be praying for the UK. We seriously need to pray. You have people who are in positions like this, who run schools. What is it that she is trying? Think about this. She is the head of an all-girls school, even though it's an all-girls school. But think about what she's trying to, what kind of things she would be trying to get taught in that school that she's the head of. Think about the things that she's trying to teach them. They're going to be learning all sorts of stuff from her and her policies that she sets forth. Think about that. Is it time that we start pulling our kids out of state-run school? Well, this is a boarding school, so it's not state-run, I assume. But I mean, how many head teachers are thinking like this? I mean, if a quarter of parents, and this is only one website, so who knows how many parents actually believe this gender-neutral nonsense? But if they're saying there's a quarter of parents on this channelmom.com website that believe in this gender neutral nonsense, this person is a head teacher of a school. How many other teachers, how many other head teachers, how many other people in authority over our children? Fair enough, adults, you can reason. Children have to usually, you enforce upon them what you believe. You enforce, especially in schools. The teachers are the authority figures. What they say goes. They're supposed to do things a certain way. They're supposed to do what they're told, and if they don't, they get a bad grade or whatever the case may be. Especially young children, are these the kind of precepts that they're teaching to our kids? This gender neutral nonsense, that there's no difference, there is no inherent difference between the male and the female of the human kind. Of course there is an inherent differences between the male and female of the human kind. God has made it that way. That's the way God made it. Oh my goodness, absolutely crazy. That's only page 4. Let's move on to the next story. So this article reads that in a one-stop shop in Hove, Sussex, an armed robber wearing a Christmas jumper held up a convenience store. He had a shotgun, no, not a shotgun, and a handgun, and he held up this one-stop shop in Hove, Sussex. Guys, we should hopefully, if you feel led to, pray for the owner of the shop, whoever was there. Pray for peace, protection from lunatics that's holding up shops. Pray for his salvation. Pray for the salvation of the robber as well. We should be praying for these guys. But this story hit a chord with me because I know in America again, right now, there are these issues with gun laws. I know there's always, almost on a daily basis, I'm seeing posts on Facebook about gun restrictions, gun laws. They want to make laws even more stricter, or there's talks about taking gun rights away from the general public altogether. Now, I know there's a big discussion going on there, and it has knock-on effects with the Constitution and all those type of things. But however, in the UK, it's different. In the UK, all guns, or virtually all gun ownership, is outlawed. So not even the police, although I know they're actually looking to change that the police are actually armed with guns. However, majority, no, as far as civilians go, it's illegal for civilians to own guns, and the majority of the police force that you actually see do not carry guns either. Now, the reason I bring this up is because in America, there's this weird mentality that you see every now and again where people say, oh, if you outlaw the guns, the criminals won't have them, which is a bunch of nonsense. I've been in the UK for over a decade now, and it's quite frequent you hear of criminals with guns shooting people, using it to threaten people, in this case holding up a shop. Yet the criminals have, keep in mind, the criminals don't seem to have any problems getting their hands on guns. The only people who would have problems getting their hands on guns are the law-abiding citizens who want to do it lawfully, who want to own their gun lawfully. They can't because it's illegal for you to own a gun. Criminals don't care about the law. Why would they care about the law? They don't business about the law. They're criminals. That's what criminals do. They're going to do something illegal. Who cares if they have a gun? The gun will allow them to do more illegal stuff. Why is it that people seem to not take into consideration that the heart of man is wicked? And over here, in America, they have one of the biggest reasons why there's this issue with guns is because on a semi-regular basis, they have mass shootings. So you'll have one person, a lone gunman, will go up into a place, which, keep in mind, the places where these gunmen go up into, there's a restriction on having guns. So these gunmen, whether they're crazy or not, whatever the case may be, go into these areas where there's a restriction on guns. Not even the security guards or police that's there have guns on the premises. So these gunmen are the only people with guns on the premises, and they go and they just shoot indiscriminately a large mass of people. And then they then they call the police with guns to come and try and sort out and get the person with a gun. Think about how stupid that sounds. You're trying to take away, you've made these areas, rightly or wrongly, you've made these areas which are gun-free zones, right? No one on these premises, whatever, in these areas, no one in these areas can actually legally have a gun. Not even the security guards have guns in these areas. So when someone loses their mind, goes and gets their gun, whether they own it legally or illegally, and decides to go up into this school, into this hospital, into this church, and start shooting people, why would you think it's your response should be, oh, we should make guns harder to get, we should restrict the guns more, as if the criminal element will have trouble getting guns? That makes no sense. I'm in the UK, and since I've been in the UK, I've always hear people talking about guns. Now, granted, we don't have mass shootings over here. Well, not as regular as America does. We do every now and again have mass shootings. But what we have over here is usually stabbings. A lot and lots of stabbings. As a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point where what they've done, they've tried to make it illegal for children, because usually the stabbing is done by teenagers. And so what they've done, they've tried to make it illegal for children, well, I say children, people under a certain age, to purchase knives, kitchen knives, normal kitchen knives. So stuff you would go to buy for your, to chop up chicken and meat and all sorts of, onions and things like that. Normal kitchen utensils. You're not supposed to, kids are not, certain youths under a certain age are not allowed to actually be able to buy those over the counter. Why? Because there's loads of stabbing going on. Now think about that. Does that prevent stabbing? No. Because what they find is that they just go home, take out their kitchen knife. Every house has a knife. It doesn't stop it. The issue is not the weapon, as it were. Another thing, in the UK, they've put a ban on samurai swords. Well, Japanese swords that are a certain height, certain curvature, things like that. They've put they haven't put a ban on all swords, only Japanese swords, certain Japanese swords that are a certain length, certain Japanese swords that have a certain curvature to them. Why? Because people were using them as weapons. Now, they haven't put a ban on things like scimitars, which is another sword. They haven't put a ban on other swords. No, a specific Japan. Why? Because people were found to be using those as weapons. Absolute nonsense. Think about that. You now make it easy for the criminal element to carry out their deeds unchallenged, because the lawful abiding citizen wants to stay within the law. The lawful abiding citizen doesn't want to do something that will cause them to fall afoul of the law. So they would make it so that they don't have any weapons on them. They have no way to defend themselves against the criminal who has no problem breaking the law. The criminal doesn't care about running afoul of the law. The criminal doesn't care about getting caught with the weapon or anything like that. The criminal doesn't care about none of those things, especially when they intend to do something that's criminal. So if the criminal decides, oh, well, I want to go rob someone, let me go get my gun. Who cares if the gun is illegal? I have it. I want to go do this thing, which is also illegal. Why would you not allow the innocent citizen, to at least have the option of arming themselves? I do remember when I first came to the UK, there was loads of stories where basically what was happening, robbers were breaking into people's homes. They had weapons, and the homeowner would defend themselves and would often injure the robber inside their property. So say someone has broken through the window, say someone had a gun. Let's say the person had a gun, right? The homeowner is home. Let's say they had a bat at home, right? Not a weapon, just a normal bat that they use to play sports with. They grab the bat, they hit the robber upside the head with the bat. Police come, arrest the robber. The robber turns around and sues the homeowner for injury, and he wins. Think about that now. That's the justice system. The robber enters your home, intent to rob you and possibly shoot you or harm you or do something else because they have a weapon, right? And they've entered your home with the intent to do something criminal, right? You have defended your life and your property, your home, the things inside your home, by having to use force against the robber because they have a weapon. You don't know what their intention is. If their intent is, oh, they see you with a bat, they decide to run, that's one thing. But you have no idea what their intention are. So you've used force against the robber disarm them, incapacitated them, have the police come, and you're the one that's in trouble, not the robber. You're the one that's in trouble. And so what's happened? The law, because this was happening a bit frequently, the law was changed so that you're now the homeowner is now allowed to defend their home. Why would that need to be put into law? That should be an obvious thing. The homeowner should obviously be allowed to defend their property. It's their property. They're inside their house. You have someone that's entering their house uninvited. They're on their property uninvited, not wanted. They come with a weapon with the intent to do something criminal. That's their actual intention. They haven't knocked on the door. They weren't allowed into the house, and then all of a sudden they have a fight and the person says, get out, and then a fight ensues or something like that. That's not what happens. This person has entered the house unannounced with the intent to do something criminal. And it shouldn't be a criminal act for you to defend your home. There shouldn't be a law saying, oh, you are legally allowed to defend your home. That should be a given. It should be a given. If someone is attacking you or threatening your life, should be a given that you're allowed to defend yourself. It shouldn't even be a case of, oh, you're allowed to defend yourself. That makes no sense. But think about this now. Going back to America, that's basically what what people are discussing now. Oh, should the person be allowed to defend themselves? Because think about it. Let's say Barack Obama is talking about, oh, guns this, guns that. Yet his family is protected by guns. All of his family is protected by guns. His children go to school and his children are protected by the Secret Service who have guns. Same thing with the Pope. I remember there was a thing where the Pope was saying, oh, the manufacturer of guns are like this, and if you own a gun, you're like this. Everybody that surrounds the Pope has a gun to protect him. So it's good for them. It's not good for you. Think about that. They're more than happy for you to send your children. So let's talk about Barack Obama. He's more than happy for you to send your children to a school where no one has a gun, no one can protect you. So if someone decides someone goes crazy, enters your child's school and starts to shoot up the place, there's no one to stop him. There's no one to meet force with force. There's no one to do that. There's no one to put any sort of fear into this person's head because they're the only person with a weapon. No one else has a weapon. They know no one else has a weapon. At the school that Barack Obama's children go to, the Secret Service watch out for his kids with guns. They protect his family with guns. You couldn't even stand too long looking at the White House without an armed guard coming and telling you to move along. You think about that. The White House, that's fenced off. You couldn't actually stand outside the fence gazing at the White House, just standing there gazing at the White House without an armed security guard coming and telling you to move along, please. That's how that works. Think about that. It's just so amazing that in the UK has banned guns, yet criminals can get guns anytime they feel like to do whatever they feel like, and no one can stop them. The police surely can't stop them. They're always having amnesty days where they're telling people, oh, you can, if you send your guns in, there won't be any criminal charges placed against you. Send your guns in with no questions asked, blah, blah, blah. They have those on a regular basis, and you should see the type of guns that people bring in. Absolutely madness. But you're wondering, how do they get these guns? Where are they getting them from? It's illegal for you to own a gun in this country. It should be so hard for you to get a gun, but it's not. It's not. America, and even this, right now, there is it Chicago? I think it's Chicago, where that has one of the strictest gun laws in the entire United States. One of the strictest places with the strictest gun laws in the entire United States. And yet it has almost the highest homicide rate for guns. Even though it has one of the strictest gun laws throughout the whole entire United States. Then you have a place, Houston, Texas, where the gun laws is one of the loosest, I guess, one of the easiest place to get a guns, yet the homicide rate with guns is incredibly low. That just openly contradicts this idea that if you put stricter gun laws, that People won't be able to get nonsense. Criminals will be able to get their hands on whatever they feel like getting their hands. Prostitution is illegal, yet prostitutes are still there. Pimps are still there, making money hand over fist. Right? Selling cocaine is illegal, yet people still do it. People still get their hands on it as well. I mean, it is madness. Guys, pray for your countries. Pray for the leaders of your countries. Pray for those who make rules and regulations, laws, make these decisions for your countries. As the Bible says we're supposed to pray for our leaders, those who rule over us. It's not just in the church that it's talking about. It's talking about those like the president, the prime minister, the queen if she does anything. I don't know if she does anything, but the queen if she does anything. You know, people who are above us, who look over us and supposed to be looking out for the welfare of their citizens. We need to pray for them. Pray for their salvation. Pray for their families. Pray for their friends. Pray that God gives them wisdom. Pray that they will obey Christ in how they do their job, their roles. Pray that they will obey Christ's commands in applying law to the land, because ultimately all your law needs to really, unless your law is completely arbitrary, you do need an objective lawgiver for your law to really mean anything. Because if your law doesn't really mean anything, it's just for example, it's like the speeding. There's laws against speeding, yet everybody speeds. Why? Because people believe that the speeding law is arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. Why does when I turn this corner I can only go 30? When I turn this corner over here, might be the same street. Okay, now I can go 55. It's as far as people are concerned in their head. They understand the concept. You don't want to hit people, but you haven't hit nobody. And because a lot of people feel they can manage those type of speeds, obviously they feel they should be able to go as fast as they so desire. I mean, the cars are even built to do that, so why not? You see, unless you have an objective lawgiver with a reasoning behind the law, then the law doesn't really mean anything to anybody. You know, it becomes fluff, and everybody can break it as they feel. Even if they're gonna get penalties, you know, as far as they're concerned, they can break it at will. There's no real reason for them not to do it, not to be able to do it. It's not any type of moral obligation on their part to not do it, you know. And so we need to be praying for our leaders, because these things, just the thought processes of people in power, sometimes it can scare you a bit, because some of these things that they're looking to put, it's like they don't understand the human heart. The human heart is wicked and deceitful. The Bible tells us these things. Jesus calls us evil, right? His creation, he calls us evil. You know, our hearts are wicked. We cannot even know the things that our heart can concoct, that our hearts can think of. There was a quote, I can't remember who said it, where it says the heart is an idol factory. You know, if we're by ourselves, we'll just create idols upon idols and upon idols out of our vain imaginations to worship. You know, we're no better than the children of Israel when they was coming out of Egypt. You know, all of a sudden, God is leading them. Then Moses is up on the mountain. They sent Moses up on the mountain. They themselves sent him up there, and then he's gone for like 30 days. Oh my goodness, we need to create another God. I don't know about this Moses character, where he's going up to. You know, let's make a golden calf, and he's our God. He's the one that brought us out of Egypt. Nonsense. You know, so our hearts are the same. Our hearts haven't changed from that position. We need to be praying for these guys. As Christians, we need to be praying for our leaders. Pray for these people who are making these decisions. Last but not least, you have the Pope. The Pope, Pope Francis. He's called for a worldwide abolition of the death penalty. The Pope. That's so weird. If you know anything about the history of the Roman Catholic Church, that is so weird for the Pope. I know he's not the same Pope. I mean, everybody knows he's not the same Pope, you know, but That's so weird. Or what? Anyway, he he declared that the commandment, "You shall not kill," was absolute and applied to both the guilty and the innocent. Absolute nonsense. Is this the guy that the Roman Catholic Church follows? Absolute madness. Think about that. One of the when you if you was to be talking to an atheist, or well, it doesn't have to be. Well, yeah, it's usually an atheist or an agnostic, someone who doesn't hold to any religious belief. Usually, they will bring up, "Thou shalt not kill." How can God say, "Thou shalt not kill"? But God kills. Not only does He kill, but He instructs other people to kill. That's one of the objections. I mean, it's a weak objection, but that's one of the objections that they use. Now, the reason they use that is because they, just like Pope Francis, erroneously used this command to say that it applies to both the guilty and the innocent, and it does not. When this law was given, this commandment was given, and it's not really "thou shalt not kill," it's "thou shalt not murder." And the reason, there's a difference between killing and murder. Both are the taking of life, but one is, killing is lawful taking of life. So I'll give you an example. So say you have someone who's a rapist, right? Say you have a rapist. They're in the process of raping someone, right? You know, you caught them raping somebody, right? You've told them to stop. They're not stopping. They're continuing to abuse. You have the right to stop them with any force necessary. If they were to die in that process, that is lawful. Let's say the police told someone there's a sniper, there's a guy who has a gun to the head of a woman, and he says he's gonna blow her brains out, blah 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 blah. Right? Let's say he blows her brains out, grabs somebody else, and says he's gonna do the same thing. Police says to the sniper, "Shoot him." Sniper shoots him, he's dead. That is lawful killing. Now, as far as God is concerned, lawful killing is anything He determines to be worthy of death. Remember, He is the objective lawgiver. It's in Him that all the laws, it's in His nature that all the laws flow out. So, the way God looks at it is anybody who takes life. So, if you've murdered someone, there's no reason for them to have died. That person, the murderer, who's taken life unlawfully, God didn't tell him it was okay to do so. God didn't instruct him to do so. There's no law or anything that says this person is supposed to lose their life. This person has taken the life of someone for no righteous reason, as far as God is concerned, because I know people can make righteous reasons. So like, for example, you have honor killings, for example, which isn't righteous as far as God is concerned. So you have someone has taken the life of someone else. That is murder. That's not killing. That's unlawful taking of life. So what should happen to that person who has murdered? That murderer should have their life taken. That murderer is to be killed, put to death. That's what's supposed to happen. So the murderer has murdered. That murderer has taken life unlawfully. That murder is supposed to be put to death. When that murderer's life is taken, that is lawful killing. So this command is not saying you shall not kill, meaning no one is supposed to be killed. How do you know that? Because in the context, there's other laws. Like, for example, you're supposed to obey and honor the Sabbath. What's the penalty if you don't honor and obey the Sabbath? It's the death penalty. That is literally in the commands. Literally. Right? In the same commands, what is the penalty if you are worshiping idols? It's the death penalty. What's the penalty if you're found raping someone? It's the death penalty. What is the penalty if you are found committing adultery? So you're married to someone, You've made a vow, to death do you part. Remember, that's the vow, till death do you part. You've made a vow to stay with this woman, to be faithful to this woman for the rest of your days. You are caught committing adultery. What is the penalty? It's not divorce, it's death penalty. Why? Because you've broken an oath that you made, not only to the woman, but to God. You've made it to God that you're going to keep this vow. That is the actual penalty. Those are lawful killings. It makes no sense. Now, that's from a biblical point of view. So the Pope is talking nonsense. There is no Christian who should be saying that that the death penalty should be abolished. That absolutely makes no biblical sense. The death penalty is actually a righteous thing that the government that should be actually employing against people who run foul of the law in such a way that it causes them to receive the death penalty. You cannot have, so for example, right now there's the issue with abortion going on in America. Abortion is over here in the UK as well, but it's quite low key. It's not as, the UK is not brazen about it like America is. Now, think about this, right? Because you will have people say that abortion should be stopped except in the cases of rape and incest. Now, majority of the states in America do not have the death penalty. The majority of the states have abolished it. I don't know which states do have it, but majority have. I know that much. Now, think about this. A woman gets raped. She's pregnant. The person that rapes her cannot be put to death, but you kill the baby instead. Makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. How could the person who actually committed the horrendous act of raping somebody and getting them present, that person doesn't get killed. That person does not have their life taken. That person gets put into jail, where the people, including this woman, has to pay for this man to live on. They pay for their boarding. They pay for whatever education that they're supposed to be getting, if they're going to get one. They pay for their meals, and majority of the time, it's not a life sentence. So eventually, this person will get out. And, the hope is that they have been rehabilitated while they were in jail, but that usually doesn't happen. So, but you would happily kill the baby. You don't kill the person that did the crime. You kill the person that has nothing to do with the crime, that's completely innocent and is a result of the crime, the same crime. It makes no sense. Now, if the Pope was saying here, abolish the death penalty, and that included, keep in mind, the death penalty, when you abort a child, that is the death penalty. You have sentenced this child to death for nothing they have done. They are completely innocent in that. That's what abortion is. You're actually murdering a child. You're taking life unlawfully. Right? If the Pope was actually saying something to the effect of, he wants to abolish death of all those who are innocent. Now, here's one of the arguments for abolishing the death penalty, and it has some merits. Now, the argument is that when you have the death penalty, because the hearts of man is wicked, you have people who will give false witnesses, and provide false testimony. So basically, just like what happened to Jesus, you will have people come and lie and say, yes, I saw this person do that, or yes, this person did this, or yes, this person did that, and because they want to see this person get killed. So they want this person to be put to death. They don't like them, and so they want this person, so they'll concoct up all sorts of stories and whatever, so this person can receive death, the death penalty. And so not only that, so then you'll have circumstantial evidence. So the evidence doesn't directly point to this person being the one who's guilty of this crime. All of it is circumstantial. And so this person is put to death, only to find that, no, This person was innocent all along. And so what you have is the argument is that when the death penalty was in full force, you had plenty of people who were put to death who are completely innocent. Now, when you add stuff like race, quote unquote, racism to the mix, where you have white people putting to death black people, and the black person is, and they'll say they did a crime, and the black person is completely innocent of the crime, but they've done it because they're black, and they feel like they can just do it, right? So when you couple those things in, and so the argument is the death penalty. With the death penalty, you will see loads of innocent people get put to death. Now, I agree that would happen. I'm not one of those people who say, well, no, that can't happen. If you have the proper judicial, if everybody follows the right, everybody's not going to follow the right way. We already know that. Let's not kid ourselves, right? How did God rectify this in the Bible, though? Because obviously God would have known that this would have been the case, and He did. And His solution was, so if you had someone giving false testimony, for example, innocent person was put to death. Person gave false testimony, and it was found later that the person gave false testimony. What was supposed to happen? The person who gave the false testimony is to be put to death. Why? Because they have unlawfully taken the life of the innocent party. You go back to thou shalt not murder. They have been a participant in the murder of this person because that person was completely innocent. They knew that person was innocent, and they lied knowing that the penalty was death. So they would now face the death penalty because they spilled innocent blood and their life needs to be taken. Think about that. If that was the penalty for people who actually lied, as it relates to the death penalty I'm talking about. So I'm not talking about like theft cases or stuff like that. I'm talking about cases where the life and death weighs in the balance of the person who's being accused of whatever crime it is that incurred the death penalty. So let's say it was a rape. Someone was accused of raping someone. Let's say evidence was forged or whatever the case may be. You have a testimony and the testimony was a liar. Person's put to death, right? That person's now dead. A couple years down the line later, it's found out, no, this person actually didn't rape that person, right? You see how some of these cases come up because back in the day they weren't able to do DNA traces and things like that. Now science has come a ways that they can do DNA traces, and now that they've done it, they found that some of these people were completely innocent. Now, in those instances, what would happen is that those people who gave those testimonies, who's actually forged that evidence, or whatever the case may be, would be put to death because they have helped, knowingly lied, knowingly presented false information, false evidence, in order to put this person to death. Those people would now have to face the penalty and be put to death themselves for taking the life of an innocent man. Now, some might say the argument continues, basically going on these lines. Yes, but then you would have people scared to tell, to provide evidence. So you'd have people who did see something actually be too scared, because then if the party is found guilty and then some evidence comes up later and it says that, oh no, the party didn't do it, unbeknownst to the person I gave the testimony, that they would be put to death. They would have to. So no, that wouldn't be the case, because the issue that weighs in the balance is the lying aspect. You have lied in order to put this person to death. You have presented false evidence to put this person to death. Now, in my head, here's how, right? Because you'll have certain circumstances in which there is no witness, there is no physical, tangible evidence that would link someone to such and such a place. All it is literally only circumstantial evidence. What would you do in those situations? Now, the way I see it is that you could put them in jail, kick them out the country, something. You could do something like, if someone is suspected of killing someone else, there is circumstantial evidence, but nothing to like nail them to the wall. There's nothing, no DNA. I see you did it, or whatever the case may be. There's nothing like that. but the person is heavily suspected to have done it, you can't put that person to death because there's no real proof, right? It's not the issue is not to be there would have to be actual proof, actual witnesses, some kind of actual hard evidence to say this person has done it, to actually put someone to death. That's actually what the Bible says. It has to be established by at least 2 or 3 lines of witnesses, and those, now that doesn't have to necessarily be people who've literally seen it happen. It could be stuff like evidence, and you see some of that play out in the Bible later on. So that evidence, like actual video camera or DNA, whatever, that can actually work as well. Because as I said, it does play out in some circumstances within the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. But when it comes to circumstantial evidence, where there's no hard facts, I want to say, nothing hard to be able to say, yes, this person definitely did it, here is the proof, then you could always kick them out the country, kick them out the state. I think that you can't lock them. You wouldn't be able to legally, and this is within the biblical economy, you couldn't really be able to lock them up because you have no real proof that they did something, right? However, if you have, if you think that they've done it, and all the evidence that you do have points to that way, but there's nothing concrete, then you can always kick them out the country, exile them, for suspicion of committing this crime, even though they may not have done it. And in that way, you don't shed innocent blood, but you also allow the person to live and to go on with their life someplace else. And you send a message to anybody else that might be thinking of doing this. So it's more, that's a more balanced system. That system is, so you're not saying that innocent people won't be killed. There is even in the Bible, God has put in clauses that allows for that. So yes, there is a good chance that some innocent people will be killed under the death penalty. It's kind of unavoidable because the hearts of men is wicked, which is the issue here. The hearts of men is wicked. People will do wicked stuff, and when people see a chance, they will try and take it. And so because of that, God has put some things in place so that, let's say it does happen, this is what you would do in response to that happening, especially when there's false witnesses, people who submit false evidence, things of that nature. Those people will then be put to death because they have knowingly helped to cause the death of an innocent person. But let's push that aside for a minute. This is the Pope. The Roman Catholic Church has a history of bloodshed. A lot of people like to say these things like, oh, the church has a history of bloodshed. No, the Roman Catholic Church has a history of bloodshed. Let's not get it twisted. When Christianity started, when Christ died and rose again and ascended, when Christianity started on the day of Pentecost, since then, up until for a long period of time, up until the Roman Empire got kind of knocked down when the Caesars were removed, those type of things, the Christian church was under heavy persecution. There was no Christians rising up killing anybody. That wasn't happening. Christians were the ones being killed. They were getting eaten by lions and set on fire and all of these crazy things. That's what happened at the beginning of the church. When the Roman Catholic Church, which makes no sense if you know what the word Catholic means, but when the Roman Catholic Church came into power, they were the ones who kicked off the bloodshed. It was they who used to burn Protestants at the stake. It was they who used to, so with the Inquisition and things like that. Even the Crusades. I mean, the first Crusade, they didn't start it. They actually when they participated, it was to defend their land against Islam, encroaching Islam that was starting to just take over places by force and by war and stuff like that. And so the church's response, the Roman Catholic Church's response, was to go fight them. But after that, when they decided to, you know what, we're going to continue this thing because we're going to start to make everybody Christians again. Well, not Christian, Roman Catholic again. And then they decided to go marching around and say, well, it's either you convert to Roman Catholicism or we kill you. So they decided to take on, I mean, I'm not a history buff or anything like that, so I can only assume that they saw the quote unquote success in conversion that Islam was doing by force. So either you convert to Islam or I kill you. And people will say, okay, well, I don't want to die, let me convert to Islam. And so they probably said, you know what, they seem to be quite successful in doing it that way, let's try and do it this way. And that's what they did. They decided to go march around, and if you either convert to Roman Catholicism, not Christianity, because Christianity you can't force someone to convert to Christianity. That's not how Christianity works. That's not, read the Bible, that's not how it works. It's not based on, you can't force someone to do it, right? They would ride around, either convert to Roman Catholicism, bowed your knee to the Pope, whichever Pope was in power at the time, regardless of whatever mess they was going on with, and you will live. If you didn't, you would die. And they killed millions of people. But that's not the fault of the Christian church. That is not something taught in the Bible. That's not something that Christ told us to do. That is something that the Roman Catholic Church, in their corrupted wisdom, decided to do in order to get more people to be Roman Catholic. That's what they did. Their complete system of how they do church is completely different. So when Pope Francis is talking about you shall not kill was absolute and applied to both the guilty and the innocent, he's complete. It's like you can't, as a pope, you cannot separate what his words from the long history of popes that came before him. You have to, because he's a pope, you have to keep that. How can he say he is the supreme pontiff within the Roman Catholic Church? He is the image of Christ. It's as if though he is in the Roman Catholic belief system. It's as though he is Christ on earth. He is in that position. He is in the position of Christ on earth right now. Literally, that's what the position is about. He is literally Christ, as if Christ was literally on earth. That's who he is, right? That's what he's supposed to be representing. That's what he's supposed to be. And how can he should not be able to contradict the previous popes, because the Pope is the one who sets the theological doctrine for the Roman Catholic Church. And this is the thing that's going on. It's something that happens all the time in Roman Catholic history. When you look at one pope will say one thing, the next pope come along and contradicts that pope. That makes no sense if God is the one telling them to do it. Now you have Pope Francis absolutely contradicting what the Bible says. I mean, the position of the Pope is a contradiction of what the Bible says anyway. But he is here. He's like he's rewriting Scripture. Think about all the millions of, a lot of Roman Catholics already believe this way anyway, that, thou shalt not kill, so that includes the guilty. So someone can do something horrendous and you're not supposed, they should never face the death penalty. God would not want them to face the death, which is nonsense, because God is the one that instituted the death penalty in the first place. Right? Think about it. Who was the first person in the Old Testament to face the death penalty? It was the man who broke the Sabbath. The man who was collecting sticks on the Sabbath, after God had literally just gave the command, you should not do any work on the Sabbath. Anybody who does work on the Sabbath, they will be cut off. And what happened? It was a Sabbath. Everybody was told to rest. No one is supposed to be doing any work. You're not supposed to be doing nothing. And the man decides to collect sticks. And this is the very first instance of the death penalty, right? And so what happens? The command has come, but I guess the people are hesitant. Yeah, I know you said to kill the person, but are we really supposed to kill the person? So what do? They grab him, they bring him to Moses. Moses prays and asks for God's direction. God says to kill him. That was the first death penalty. Now, when I say the first death penalty, I don't mean the first death penalty in all of the Bible. I'm talking about the first death penalty after the commands were given. So where it says, thou shalt not murder, it doesn't say kill, it says murder. When after that, so once they have got this law, they have this law now, how was this law viewed? Was the law viewed as no one is supposed to be killed, even the guilty party? So the guilty, they have transgressed the law of God. The law of God says this, but it also says thou shalt not kill. So we can't kill nobody. Did they view it like that, or did they view it did they view it like that, or did they view it as some people who are guilty are supposed to be put to death? There are some laws that if you transgress, you must be put to death. Did they view it that way? And when you read the Bible, you clearly see that it was viewed that way. God told them to go into the promised land and wipe out whole entire nations. It wasn't him doing it. He was sending the children of Israel as executioners to carry out his will, to bring judgment on these nations for all the wickedness that they were doing. It's a complete contradiction. He's making a contradiction in the Bible. You read the Bible, even if your Bible says thou shalt not kill instead of thou shalt not murder, the very next few lines has God telling people to kill people. You need to read it properly. You need to not apply stuff that it doesn't say. Clearly, if literally down a couple sentences later you have God saying to kill people, clearly it's not a complete and total ban on killing people. Obviously, there's a nuance there, and the nuance is that you're not supposed to murder, which is why he actually, as a matter of fact, it's not in the book of Exodus, you have the laws given. In the book of Deuteronomy, you have the laws given again, right? And in the book of Deuteronomy, there are, it goes into more depth with some of the laws. So, for example, in the book of Exodus, it'll say, thou shalt not rape, or something like that. Let's say, it'll say something like, thou shalt not rape, yeah? For example, just an example. In the book of Deuteronomy, it will go into details. Okay, let's say someone was in the field, and someone came up on the woman, and the woman cried out, but there was no one to hear. It goes into details, right? The laws actually do that. So where it says thou shalt not kill, later on it goes into details, and it starts to give hypothetical situations. And then it even says, let's say two men are chopping wood. One lifts up their axe, and the axe handle flies off their handle and hits the other man in the head, killing him. Right? Thou shalt not kill. What is that man supposed to do? The man is allowed to then go to a city of refuge, which God created for people who have taken life innocently. It wasn't malicious. They didn't do it on purpose. It was is it manslaughter? Is that what it is? Is that the equivalent? Basically, they've killed someone and it was a complete accident. It wasn't intentional. They weren't fighting with them or anything like that. It was a complete accident. But they've still killed someone, right? Innocent blood has still been shed. There was no reason for this person to have died. They didn't break any law that mandated for their death, right? What's supposed to happen to this person? They have taken a life. Their life is now supposed to be taken because the life of an innocent person has died. So, but what God does is he created a city of refuge, a bunch of them, I think 7 in total, so that these people can run to, have their case heard by the high priest in those cities, and then they would stay there until the high priest died. They couldn't leave, because if they left, then the judgment of the law, which means that they're supposed to die, would fall on them, right? So they had to stay in these cities until the high priest died, and then they would be released from that penalty of having to be killed. That's how that was supposed to work. So that means this does not mean it literally applies to both the guilty and the innocent. Complete nonsense. The amount of nonsense, I mean, popes usually chat nonsense anyway, but the amount of nonsense that Pope Francis has said since he's been instated as Pope is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he goes against so much Roman Catholic doctrine that it must be horrible for for conservative Roman Catholics. I mean, he's quite liberal, and it's just weird. It is so weird. I mean, how do you talk to, one before he was there, and you had the previous pope, and the previous pope was very conservative. He stuck with the Roman Catholic line. You can hear him talking about. I remember there was a quote from the previous pope where he was like, "The only church that exists is the Roman Catholic Church. Every other church is false, and you have to be in the Roman Catholic Church to be saved." I remember that quote. I read that article. I remember reading that. This pope doesn't believe that. This pope believes, oh, no, 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 you don't have to be in the Roman Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, atheists who are charitable can be saved, and Muslims, we worship the same God. Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But anyway, that's the stories that stuck out to me today when I was reading the Metro. Hope you guys have a good rest of the night, and I'll see you later.